She thought her life was finally coming together. A loving mother, a bright son, and the promise of a better future. But in a single moment, everything changed. What happens next will leave you speechless. Stay with us to see how one decision can change everything. You won't believe how it all ends. If you enjoy gripping stories like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Camila Jackson stood at the entrance of the bustling university campus, her dark, curly hair swaying in the breeze. The sun beamed down on New York City, casting golden streaks across the crowded sidewalks. Students bustled around her, their faces full of ambition, carrying books, laptops, and dreams of success. But for Camila, this day felt different. It wasn't the usual excitement of starting a new semester. There was a weight on her heart she couldn't shake. Her gaze shifted to the main courtyard where she spotted Tyler Brooks, the guy who had unknowingly stolen her heart. His laughter echoed through the air as he joked with a group of his friends. Tyler was tall, confident, and effortlessly charming. Everyone gravitated toward him like moths to a flame. He had that rare ability to make people feel seen, even if only for a moment. Camila smiled to herself, heart pounding a little faster. Tyler wasn't just a crush. He had become her closest friend over the past year. They studied together, shared meals, and walked home after late classes. They told each other everything, or so she thought. Deep down, she hoped he could see her as more than a friend. Every glance, every shared laugh felt like something more, but she didn't dare say it aloud. "Yo, Camila, you just gonna stand there daydreaming or you gonna come say hi?" Tyler's voice snapped her back to reality. He waved her over, that playful grin tugging at his lips. Her cheeks flushed with warmth, but she played it cool, striding over with her backpack slung across one shoulder. "Daydreaming? Boy, please," she said with a smirk. "Some of us actually have classes to get to." Yeah, he laughed, giving her a playful nudge. "Don't act like you don't miss me when I'm not around." "Miss you? I see you every day, Tyler. You're like one of those street performers that never go away." His friends burst out laughing, and Tyler clutched his chest, acting like her words had mortally wounded him. "Oof, right in the heart, Camila. You're cold." Their playful banter felt natural, like breathing. But as much as she joked with him, her heart ached for something more. She didn't just want to be one of the guys. She wanted to be the girl he couldn't stop thinking about. Days turned into weeks, and their friendship only grew stronger. Tyler started walking her home every night, and she noticed how his playful teasing turned into something softer, more thoughtful. One evening, after a long study session, they sat on the steps outside her apartment building. The street lights flickered, casting soft glows on their faces. "You ever think about the future, Camila?" Tyler asked, his eyes gazing at the street like he could see something no one else could. "All the time," she replied, glancing at him, trying to figure out where I'm supposed to be, who I'm supposed to be. "Yeah, same," he muttered, his voice quieter than usual. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing enough, if I'm enough." His vulnerability caught her off guard. Tyler always seemed so sure of himself, like nothing could shake him. But in that moment, he looked just as lost as everyone else. Without thinking, she reached over and squeezed his hand. "You're enough, Tyler. You've always been enough." His eyes met hers, and for a moment the air between them shifted. Something unspoken lingered in that space, something more than friendship. But just as quickly, Tyler smiled and looked away, burying whatever feeling had surfaced. They spent more time together after that night. It felt different now, though neither of them said it. Camila's heart raced every time his hand brushed against hers. She caught him glancing at her longer than usual, but he never said a word. Until one night. It was a chilly evening in early November, and Camila felt nauseous. Her body was off in a way she couldn't explain. At first, she thought it was just stress from exams, but the feeling didn't go away. Her heart sank when she realized she hadn't gotten her period in weeks. The thought hit her like a freight train. No, it couldn't be that. It couldn't. 2 days later, she bought a pregnancy test. She sat in her bathroom, staring at the little white stick as if it held her fate in its hands. Minutes passed like hours. Her breath hitched when the second pink line appeared. Her whole world spun out of control. She was pregnant. Her heart raced with fear. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not now, not like this. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them away. No, she had to be strong. Her first thought was Tyler. He had to know. He deserved to know. He would support her. He had to. Camila called him that night, her voice shaky but firm. "Hey, can we meet up? I need to talk to you." "Yeah, sure," he replied, not sensing the gravity of her tone. "You good, though? You sound off." "I'm fine," she lied. "Just meet me at the park by your place, please." An hour later, she stood under the streetlight at the park, her arms wrapped around herself to block out the chill. Tyler showed up, hands in his pockets, flashing that same easy smile. "You good, Camila? What's up?" She hesitated, her throat tight, but there was no easy way to say it. "I'm pregnant, Tyler." The smile slipped from his face like a mask falling off. His eyes widened with disbelief. "What?" "I'm pregnant," she repeated, her voice firmer now. "It's yours, Tyler." Silence. It was like the world froze around them. She watched as his gaze shifted from shock to panic. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing in circles. "No, no, no, Camila, this can't be happening. We're too young for this." "I know," she said, her voice cracking. "But it's real, Tyler. I'm not asking for much. I just need to know you'll be here for me. For us." His pacing stopped. He looked at her, jaw clenched tight. "I can't do this, Camila. I'm not ready to be a father." Her chest tightened. "You think I am? You think I planned this, Tyler?" Her voice rose with each word. "But I'm still here. I'm not running away." He glanced at her, guilt flickering in his eyes. "I'm leaving, Kamala. My cousin got me a job out in L.A. I leave next week." Her heart shattered. "You're leaving? You're just walking away from us?" "I'm sorry," he muttered, eyes avoiding hers. "I can't do it. I'm sorry." Camila stood there, watching him walk away, each step feeling like a knife to her chest. She didn't chase after him. She didn't beg him to stay. If he could leave that easily, then he didn't deserve to be part of her life, or her child's life. That night, she sat on the edge of her bed, cradling her stomach. Tears streamed down her face, but she wasn't crying out of sadness anymore. It was something stronger. It was resolve. "You'll be okay, baby," she whispered, rubbing her belly. "We'll be okay. I promise you that." Months passed, and Kamala gave birth to a healthy baby boy. She named him Malik Jackson. The first time she held him in her arms, she felt a love so fierce it drowned out all her fears. Malik's soft brown eyes gazed up at her with innocence and trust. In that moment, she made him a promise. "No one will ever hurt you. I'll protect you no matter what," she whispered, pressing a kiss to his forehead. Life wasn't easy, but Camila fought for every inch of peace they had. She worked 2 jobs, barely slept, but she never missed a moment with Malik. Every milestone, every first step, every word, she was there for it all. By the time Malik was 5, he had grown into a bright, joyful boy who adored his mother. She was his world, and he was hers. But fate had other plans. One cold December afternoon, Camila was walking home with Malik by her side. The streetlights flickered as cars whizzed past them. In a split second, everything changed. A screeching of tires, a flash of headlights. The last thing Malik saw was his mother's body tumbling through the air. Malik sat on the edge of his bed, clutching a small toy car in his hands. His little fingers traced the grooves and ridges of its wheels as silent tears streamed down his cheeks. The house felt emptier than it had ever been. It had only been a few days since his mother, Camila, was buried, but the weight of her absence was suffocating. Every room he entered reminded him of her. Her scent lingered in the air. Her favorite coffee mug still sat on the kitchen counter, and her soft voice echoed in his mind. But she was gone. Gone forever. His grandmother, Loretta Jackson, watched him from the doorway, her heart aching for her grandson. Loretta was a strong woman, but seeing Malik like this broke something inside her. She knew the pain of loss all too well, first her husband and now her daughter. But seeing that pain mirrored in Malik's young eyes was almost unbearable. She approached him slowly, her footsteps soft, and knelt in front of him. "Malik, baby," she said gently, wiping the tears from his face with her calloused hands. "I know it hurts. I know you miss her. I miss her too, baby. But you're not alone. You got me, you hear?" Malik sniffled, his big brown eyes looking up at her. "I want Mommy," he whimpered, his voice cracking with grief. "I want her to come back." Loretta pulled him into her arms, holding him close as he sobbed into her shoulder. She rocked him slowly, humming a soft melody she used to sing to Camila when she was a little girl. Her eyes stared at the wall, blank and hollow, her mind replaying every moment she spent with her daughter. "I know, baby," she whispered, stroking his curly hair. "I know you do." Days turned into weeks. Malik stayed with Loretta full time, but nothing about it felt right. His world had shifted, and nothing made sense anymore. He stopped talking as much. His bright smile, the one Camila used to call sunshine on a cloudy day, was gone. Loretta tried her best to fill the void, cooking his favorite meals, buying him small toys, and reading him stories at bedtime. But she wasn't his mother. No one could be. Malik began sneaking out of the house. At first, Loretta didn't notice. She assumed he was playing in his room or sitting on the front porch. But one day, she realized he was gone for too long. She searched the house, calling his name, her heart pounding in her chest. Panic gripped her when she couldn't find him. She ran down the street, frantically checking every corner. She finally spotted him. Malik was sitting at the cemetery right in front of Camila's headstone. His small frame looked even smaller as he sat with his arms wrapped around his knees. He was talking to the gravestone, his little voice carried by the wind. "Mommy, I'm being good. I'm doing everything you said," he muttered, his eyes fixed on the name etched into the cold stone. "Can you come back now? I miss you. I miss you so bad." Loretta's heart shattered. She walked over slowly, not wanting to startle him. Sitting down beside him, she placed a hand on his back. He didn't flinch, didn't turn his head. He just kept staring at his mother's name. "Malik," she said softly, "your mama's not gone, baby. She's right here, with you, in your heart." "But I want her here," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't want her in my heart. I want her here." Loretta couldn't hold back her tears. She hugged him tightly, and they sat there for what felt like hours. She knew it wasn't fair. Life wasn't fair. But how could she explain that to a 5-year-old boy who had just lost his whole world? After that day, Malik visited the cemetery often. Too often. Loretta tried to stop him, but every time she turned her back, he found his way there. She scolded him once, telling him it wasn't safe for a boy his age to wander the streets alone. He stared at her with teary eyes and said, "I just want to see Mommy." What could she say to that? How could she deny him that? One rainy afternoon, Malik was sitting in front of his mother's grave again. The rain soaked through his jacket, and the cold air bit at his skin, but he didn't move. His little fingers dug into the dirt. He wasn't crying this time. He just sat quietly, his gaze distant. A shadow loomed over him. He glanced up, expecting to see his grandmother, but it wasn't her. A tall man in a dark coat stood a few feet away, staring at the gravestone. He didn't move, didn't say a word. His face was hard to see under the hood, but Malik felt something familiar about him. "Who are you?" Malik asked, his voice loud against the rain. The man hesitated before pulling back his hood. Malik squinted, wiping water from his face. The man had short, clean-cut hair and a face that looked like it had seen too much of the world. His eyes were brown, just like Malik's. I'm your dad," the man said, his voice strained, like the words tasted bitter. Malik blinked, confusion and anger mixing on his small face. "No, you're not. My daddy's gone. He left." The man's face fell, pain flashing in his eyes. "You're right," he admitted, his voice hoarse. "I did leave. I made a mistake, son, but I'm here now." "I'm not your son," Malik snapped, his little hands balling into fists. "You didn't love my mommy. You left us." His words hit harder than any punch. The man winced like he'd been struck. "You're right," he said again, kneeling so he was on Malik's level. "I messed up, Malik. I messed up real bad, but I'm here now. I want to be here for you." "Mommy said you don't get to come back when you leave," Malik said, his voice trembling. "She said people who leave don't care." Tears gathered in the man's eyes, but he didn't wipe them away. He let them fall. "Your mom was right. I didn't care enough back then, but I care now." He reached out his hand. "I know I don't deserve it, but I want a chance to know you. Please." Malik didn't move. He stared at his father, anger and hurt swirling in his chest. He looked back at his mother's name on the gravestone, then at the man in front of him. He didn't know what to do. "Where were you?" Malik asked finally, his voice barely a whisper. "Where were you when I needed you?" The man's face crumpled. He bowed his head, unable to look his son in the eye. "I was being a coward," he admitted, "but I'm not going to be a coward anymore." Loretta arrived a few minutes later, running toward them with an umbrella in her hand. Her eyes went wide when she saw the man. "Tyler?" she said, disbelief and anger mixing in her voice. Tyler stood slowly, his eyes locked on her. "Miss Loretta," he said quietly. I just wanted to see him." "You've seen him," she said coldly, pulling Malik close. "Now you can leave." "I'm not leaving," Tyler said firmly. "Not this time." They stood there, rain pouring down, thunder rumbling in the distance. The tension was heavy, thicker than the storm clouds above them. Malik looked up at his grandmother, then at Tyler. His heart didn't know what to feel. "You have a lot to prove," Loretta said, narrowing her eyes. "And I ain't making it easy for you." "I'm not asking for easy," Tyler replied. "Just a chance." The rain continued to fall as they stood there in silence. The only sound was Malik's soft sniffle as he looked at his father, his eyes filled with pain and questions. "Can you promise you won't leave?" Malik asked, his voice so small it was almost drowned out by the rain. Tyler knelt again, looking him in the eyes. "I promise, son. I ain't going nowhere this time." Malik stared at him for a long moment before slowly stepping forward and letting himself be pulled into Tyler's arms. Tyler held him tight, closing his eyes as tears mixed with rain on his face. "I'm sorry," Tyler whispered, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." For the first time in a long time, Malik didn't feel alone. Days turned into weeks, and although the air between them was tense, Tyler remained in Malik's life. He visited every day, sometimes bringing small gifts like toy cars or coloring books, but it was clear that no toy could fix the pain in Malik's heart. Loretta watched him like a hawk, never letting Tyler out of her sight. She didn't trust him, and she made it clear. Every time Tyler came to the house, she sat by the window or stayed in the kitchen with a sharp ear on every conversation. Tyler knew it. He felt her eyes on him, but he didn't say a word about it. He understood why she didn't trust him after all. He had walked away when he was needed most. He had failed Camila, and now he was fighting to prove that he wouldn't fail Malik too. It wasn't easy. Malik wasn't quick to forgive, and Tyler didn't expect him to. Their time together was awkward at first. Malik rarely spoke to him. He'd sit across the room, arms folded, eyes glued to the TV, barely glancing at his father. Tyler tried everything to engage him. He asked about Malik's favorite cartoons, favorite snacks, and even tried playing video games with him. Malik responded with one-word answers, sometimes none at all. "Want to play this game with me, champ?" Tyler asked one afternoon, holding a game controller in his hand. "I'm pretty good at it. Bet I can beat you." Malik didn't even turn his head. "Don't care," he muttered, eyes locked on the TV. Tyler sighed, rubbing the back of his head. "Yeah, well, maybe next time, huh?" He sat beside him, letting the silence stretch between them. The sound of the cartoon characters on TV filled the room, their silly voices echoing through the small living room. Tyler sat still, watching the show with Malik, not saying a word. That was how things went for weeks. Tyler didn't push. He didn't force Malik to talk. He just stayed. And that, slowly but surely, started to make a difference. One evening, Malik finally asked him a question. "Why did you leave?" Malik's voice was quiet, but it cut deeper than any yell could. He didn't turn his head. He just stared at the TV, his small fingers gripping the blanket on his lap. Tyler's chest tightened. He knew this moment would come, but hearing it from his son made it feel more real. He took a deep breath, staring at his hands for a moment before answering. "Because I was scared," he said honestly, his voice raw. "I was young and stupid. I thought if I ran away, all my problems would disappear. But I was wrong, Malik. I was so wrong." He glanced at his son, hoping to see a sign that he was listening. "I'm here now, though. I'm here, and I'm not running anymore." Malik didn't say anything at first. His small fingers tightened around the blanket, and for a moment, Tyler thought the boy might get up and leave. But he didn't. "You hurt Mommy," Malik muttered, his voice cracking. "She was sad all the time." Those words hit Tyler like a brick wall. He lowered his head, hands clasped together. He didn't try to deny it. He knew it was true. "I know, buddy," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "I hurt her, and I hate myself for that. I can't change it. I wish I could, but I can't." Silence filled the room again. Malik's eyes stayed on the TV, but Tyler noticed the way his breathing had slowed. He wasn't just watching cartoons, he was listening. Tyler decided to say one last thing. "But I can do better for you," he said, his eyes focused on his son. "I can be better for you, and I'm going to be. No more running, no more excuses." They sat in silence for a while longer. Then, without warning, Malik shifted closer. He didn't say a word, but he leaned his small head on Tyler's arm. Tyler froze, his heart thudding in his chest. Slowly, carefully, he wrapped his arm around Malik, pulling him close. Malik didn't pull away. He just sat there, leaning against him, watching cartoons like it was the most normal thing in the world. The days that followed were better. Malik didn't talk much, but his guard was coming down. He started joining Tyler on walks to the park, and one day he even asked if Tyler could push him on the swings. Tyler grinned like he'd won the lottery. He lifted Malik onto the swing and gave him gentle pushes. "Higher, Daddy," Malik shouted, giggling as the wind rushed past him. Tyler blinked, his heart swelling in his chest. It was the first time Malik had called him Daddy. It wasn't planned, it wasn't forced, it just happened. And for Tyler, it was everything. "All right, champ," Tyler said, his voice thick with emotion. "Higher it is." Loretta watched them from the park bench. She didn't say anything, but a small smile tugged at the corner of her lips. She still didn't trust Tyler completely, but she could see the change in him. He was trying, and for now, that was enough. One evening, after dinner, Malik asked Tyler if he could help with his homework. Tyler sat at the kitchen table with him, going over spelling words. It was slow at first. Tyler hadn't looked at a spelling book in years, but he stayed patient. "Spelled together," Tyler said, tapping the page with his pencil. Malik scrunched up his face, thinking hard. "Together," he said, glancing up for approval. "Boom, you got it." Tyler grinned, giving him a high five. "You're smarter than me, kid." Malik laughed, his giggle filling the kitchen like music. Loretta watched from the sink, drying dishes with a small smile on her face. For the first time, she felt hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this man wasn't going to run again. But things weren't perfect. One night, after Tyler tucked Malik into bed, he sat at the kitchen table with Loretta. They didn't talk at first. Tyler stared at his hands, rubbing his thumb over a scar on his palm. "You've been doing good," Loretta said finally, her voice firm but not cold. "But good ain't enough." Tyler glanced up, eyes narrowing in confusion. "What do you mean?" "You've been showing up for 3 months, Tyler. That's good. But showing up ain't the same as staying," she said, setting the dish towel down. "You want me to believe you've changed? Then you need to prove it every day. Not just for a few weeks. Every day." "I know," Tyler muttered, nodding slowly. "I know." She leaned forward, her sharp eyes locking onto his. "Camila gave everything for that boy. She worked, she struggled, and she didn't run. You don't get to show up for a few months and think that's enough. You hear me?" "I hear you," Tyler said firmly, his voice steady this time. "I'm not going anywhere." Loretta studied him for a moment longer, then gave a small nod. "We'll see." More weeks passed. Tyler's visits became longer, and eventually Loretta let him pick Malik up from school. She still watched him closely, but she no longer hovered. Malik's walls were slowly coming down. He held Tyler's hand on the way home from school. He told him about his day, about the kids in his class, and about the big spider they found behind the playground. One night, as Tyler tucked Malik in, the boy looked up at him with sleepy eyes. "You're not gonna leave, right?" he asked quietly. Tyler's throat tightened. He knelt by the bed, brushing a hand through Malik's curly hair. "I'm not going anywhere, champ," he promised. "Not ever." "Promise?" Malik whispered, his eyes heavy with sleep. "Promise," Tyler said firmly, pressing a kiss to his forehead. "I love you, buddy." "I love you too, Daddy," Malik mumbled as his eyes closed. For Tyler, those words felt like salvation. He sat by Malik's bed for a long time, watching him sleep. He didn't need anything else in the world. The next morning, Loretta caught Tyler in the kitchen. She poured herself a cup of coffee, watching him closely. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "You're doing all right, Tyler," she said. "Don't mess it up." Tyler looked at her, his face calm but determined. "I won't," he said. "Not this time." For the first time, Loretta believed him. What a journey it's been. Just when it seemed like everything was falling apart, a new hope emerged. But what happens next is a story for another day. If you were moved by this story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new one. We'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let us know what you thought about this story. Where are you watching from? Your support means everything to us. See you in the next video.